Hi, this is Coach Chris Berg, and welcome to Student Athlete Spotlight. Today I'm very excited to share with you a tremendous recruiting success story about a young man out of Southern California. He's going to be playing football next year at Allegheny College in Pennsylvania. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to Nick Rios and his dad, Ken. Nick and Ken, thanks for being with me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Coach.
I'm excited to hear the story. And Ken, I wanted to start with you. Last time we talked, you shared a very emotional story about your recruiting process. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing your story and a couple, tidbits about families that may be going through the process now and what kind of guidance you would give them through your experience.
Well, we hooked up with you guys back in Nick's junior year. I can say honestly that we would not be where we are today without you guys.
Thank you, Ken.
And that's so true. Nick and I did a lot of work ourselves during the process, and I think that's important that families understand. They just can't hire you guys and then sit back and wait for you to do something for them. They've got to get involved, and what Nick and I did is when the mailers went out and everything went out to all these coaches across the country, and we started getting emails and responses in, we set up a tracker form to follow these responses, and then we would email back. And one of the valuable lessons we learned through you guys is when you email back these coaches to thank them for making contact with you, that's when the communication starts. And what Nick and I did is we made sure together that when we responded to any of these coaches, we always ended our email with some kind of a question that would force them to respond back to us again so we could start opening a communication thing. And I thought that was the most important thing, is when we replied to them saying, thank you for your interest in me. Here's a little, we typed a little thing about Nick, and I already got the profile. So we typed a little thing about Nick and thanked them and told them how interested we would be in, looking at their college and looking at what they have. And then we'd ask some kind of a question or end it that way. So we would force them to have to respond. So that's the big thing. I would think anytime you're communicating with these coaches via email and all that stuff, always end the email with some type of a question or whatever that would force them to communicate back to you. That was a big deal with us.
Great point.
And in the meantime, what we did is we researched the colleges that responded to us. Another big thing that I think I learned, I'm from South Bend, Indiana, originally, home of the Fighting Irish, and our dream has always been, since Nick was 8 years old playing Pop Warner football, that he was going to go to Notre Dame and play football. Well, that was a nice dream, and it kept Nick motivated his whole high school career and everything. But when it really comes down to it, you look at the videotape yourself, you know what, Nick's not a Notre Dame football player. He's not built like one. He's not probably even a D1 player. In our first mailer, we contacted D1, D2, D3 schools to see what the response was, and I think we only got one response from a D1. So I think it's important that parents, and again, this is something that you guys have told me at the very beginning, is you can't dream, you can't send responses to colleges. You have to understand reality. And maybe your son or daughter is not a D1 player. You need to accept that. You can't keep focusing on the D1, because while you're doing that, there's a lot of D2, D3 schools that are slipping by the wayside because you're not communicating with them, and you're focusing on D1, which, is not really a reality for your student athlete. And that's something that we realized right away. Nick and I, let's focus on some D2s, but let's hit some D3s real heavy because we know we can go there. So that's the second point that I'd like to share. And then finally, the third one is Nick's going to play for a D3 school. And as everybody knows, there's no athletic scholarships at D3. But these schools, if they really want you, number one, and if you have good grades, which is something Nick turned around his junior year and carrying a 3.6 GPA, and we went to these schools, and I'm telling you, there is plenty of money that they will throw at you through what I want to say, scholarships and things like that, through academics, because your grades are good. So that's another thing. If you really want to play college sports at the next level, make sure the students got some good grades, because that opens up a whole new thing for you guys. And that was the third thing that we really focused on.
Hi there, this is Coach Chris Berg, and thank you for listening to part 1 of my interview with Nick and Ken. I'm going to be sending out part 2 to you very quickly, so be on the lookout for that. And in part 2, I'm excited to have you listen to Nick, the student athlete himself, about his successes and challenges of the college recruiting process as a student athlete. He's got some great information to share. So until then, thank you very much. This is Coach Chris Berg, your college recruiting coach.